Hi everyone, Christina here. Welcome to day 17 of the holiday card series for 2016. Today I'm using this brand new stamp set from Newton's Nook. This is called Sun Soaked Christmas, and I've heard from so many of you that you want to see cards using supplies and images for those of you who live in warmer climates for Christmas. So I thought this would be a really fun card to make. I love these images, they're adorable. So I'm taking the palm trees and stockings and presents image, and I'm going to be stamping that onto some craft cardstock. This is the color Desert Storm from Neenah, and I've cut this down to be 3 3/4 wide by 5 inches tall, although I will die cut it down a little bit smaller. And I used a transparency grid inside my MISTI in order to get everything on there straight in those the greeting that says Deck the Palms. I wanted that on there really straight. And then I used my MISTI tool to stamp that down. I'm going to leave the stamp inside the MISTI tool, and I'll come back to it later and you'll see what I do with it then. So I'm going to be using some Prismacolor colored pencils today, and I'm going to be coloring on top of this image. The reason why I wanted to use the Neenah Desert Storm cardstock was because I really, really love the look of colored pencil on a different colored cardstock. I love it on grays and blacks, or yeah, black too, but gray and browns, things like that. It makes me think of all of the illustration projects that I did in college when I was getting my art degree. So it just really reminds me of that. Plus, one of my good friends, Stephanie Cloak, she has been doing some amazing like coloring pages. Like she's printed out digital coloring pages onto some different colored cardstocks and papers, and then doing beautiful colored pencil colorings on top. So I'll link to one of her latest videos up in the top corner. She's phenomenal at coloring dresses and getting all the shading on those folds. So I'll link to her video. She's fantastic and I love her. So I'm doing just really, really simple coloring today. I'm using a few different shades of each color, starting with the lightest color and then building up to those darker shades. And then I go in after all of that has colored in, and I add a little bit of white to create a highlight on the image. So I'm going to come in and add a little bit of white on this green stocking, and that's just going to give it a little bit more dimension. I really love the look of the white right on top of the craft cardstock. This is sort of a similar look that I got with my previous video where I used the white texture paste on top of this Desert Storm cardstock. It's really fun to have that contrast in color, and you don't get quite as much contrast if you have it on a white background. I just think it's a really fun way to have a different look for your holiday cards or any cards all year round. So I'm bringing in some blue shades. I debated on whether I was going to keep this all red and green, but then I decided to bring in a little bit of blue so it's a little bit like water, and that I would then color in some water off to the side of my scene here just to complete it. So I am going to bring in a little bit more blue or kind of like a teal shade and just give a little bit more off to the side. And as far as the palm trees go, I colored the palm leaves in the same colors that I used for the green stocking and the green present. And I did it in the same exact order, but I did not add white on top of these. I think you definitely could if you wanted to. You could even add a little more texture onto these, but I kept them very, very simple. And then I came in with just 2 colors of brown for the coconuts and also the trunks on the trees. So I'm starting out with this really light sand shade, which is almost the same color as my cardstock. And then I came in with a kind of a medium brown. And I'm going to use that same medium brown on the trunks of the trees. and then I'll bring in a darker brown to do more shading. So you can definitely kind of mix things up, use some different colors if you'd like. I think the thing that really makes these colored pencil colorings and drawings pop is when you bring in areas of white for highlight. I think it gives it a lot more dimension and a little more interest, and it just looks really, really cool. I think it's fun, especially if you have like a person stamp maybe, to do all of those kind of more flesh tones and have the white highlights on their skin, or in their eyes or things like that. I just think it really pops off the page and looks amazing. So I'm adding some browns just at the bottom to kind of color in the sand areas, adding a little more shading. And then I decided to draw in some white clouds. These are just some little fluffy clouds. So I'm going to go back to my Misty tool, and that stamp, those two stamps, if you remember, were left in the Misty tool, and then I stamped over the top of my colored scene using some more black ink, and that just intensifies all the black ink, and any of those areas where the colored pencil started to kind of mask the black, it makes it more intense. So because that pigment ink was really wet and I needed to move on with my card, I decided to go ahead and sprinkle on some clear embossing powder from Hero Arts and then heat set that until it was nice and smooth. And now those black lines are really shiny and they stand out off the page. So I'm taking this circle die. This is one of the nested circle dies from Simon Says Stamp, and I'm only going to cut the top half. So I'm making sure that only the areas that I want to be cut are inside my cutting sandwich, and then I'll go ahead and run this through my die cutting machine. This is a great way to make shaped tags or labels for your projects. So I'm going to go ahead and prep my card base now. I'm using some Neenah Solar White cardstock, and I'm scoring that at 5.5 to create a top folding card. I then took some Caribbean twine. Caribbean is the color, and the twine is from the Twinery. And you can buy this in smaller packs. Like I have a big roll of this twine, but you can get it in like 15 yards cards. I'll have that linked in the supply section below and at my blog. So I put some foam on the back of that colored pencil piece and then press that down onto my card base. To finish things off and just add a little more sparkle, I'm going to be using some Nuvo drops. And these are in the color, I think it's Winter Blizzard. I think that's the name of the color. And I'm not adhering or squeezing out all of the liquid over every single area of each thing. I'm squeezing out a little bit and then using the tip to spread out the glitter over the entire area. So if you're hearing meowing, that is my cat Sophie. She says hello. Hey, Soph. And she's being quiet now. Anyway, that's the card for today. I will be back on Wednesday for day 18 of the holiday card series. Thanks for watching.